everyone. Today I'm going to make a slightly different coffee. Right, I'm going to make the siphon coffee, and I'm going to use my Millwright hand grinder, right, to make a coffee out of this. And yeah, I will not be paying too much attention to the water to coffee ground ratio, but rather I'll just do it my usual style. Right, usually I'll use about 30 grams of coffee beans. Right, my Millwright can only do about 20 plus, so I'll probably be doing 2 times, right? And I will fill this up with hot water, right? And I'll start the alcohol lamp at the bottom, right? Then I'll start to let the water boil, and then I'll start to make the coffee, right? It's actually very therapeutic to see the siphon coffee in action, right? So let's make some coffee today. And this is Seah once again, right? First time joining my channel, right? Thank you for following me so far, and if you have not done so, remember to subscribe and like my videos, right? Let's get started. Right, before we start, we have to pour hot water first and let the water start to boil. So I'm just going to use the water that's stored in a vacuum flask. Right, as I'm going a bit casual on this, I didn't really follow any ratio, right? So I didn't also measure the amount of water, and I'm also not going to measure the mass of gram that I'm going to use, right? So next, of course, is to start the fire. Right, so while the water is boiling, or while the water is heating up, I'll be inserting the top part of this siphon, and I'll see that if there's any bubble actually forming at the bottom, and I knew that that would be the temperature for me to insert the upper part of the siphon vertically, right? So the water will be pushed out due to the heat expansion, and force the water to go up to the upper chamber, right? So you'll see that in a short while. This is actually the one, right? This is actually the upper chamber, and you can see I'm actually using a cloth filter, right? This cloth filter I usually will wash it about once every 2 weeks, right? I'll be using the Kafiza tablets for back flushing to actually soak the cloth filter inside a solution that is where the Kafiza powder is dissolved, and then and then give it a thorough wash, and the cloth filter is actually good to go. Right, so right now I'm not going to fully push down. I'm just going to let it rest slanted, right? And you can actually observe by looking at the there's actually some sort of a chain at the bottom, which will tells you whether the water is ready, right? When the bubbles actually forms more and more, and you know that this is more or less ready, right? So let's wait for that to happen. And while waiting, right, let's get our Millwright ready, right? This is actually the hand grinder from Seah Industry. Right, it's one of the best value for money grinder I've ever owned. Right, if you're interested, you can actually look for me in Singapore, because I'm their dealer in Singapore. It costs around $220, right? Fully metal body, right? It's a one-piece body, right, with an upper chamber and lower chamber. 45 mm titanium coated burr sets, right? Excellent value for money, right? You can grind all espresso all the way to pour over to French, right? There's no issue. You can even go Turkish on this, right? So the beans I'm going to use today is the Ethiopian Konga beans, which I've roasted last week. So as you can see, I'm not going to measure, because I know my Millwright is going to have about 26 grams of capacity. Wow, the bean smells amazing, right? So I'm just going to make sure that it fills everything here all the way to the max, right? And my current setting on my Millwright is actually 45 clicks, right? I like 45 clicks for pour over, right? Same thing, usually I'll grind slightly finer for this siphon coffee, right? But I think today I'll do 45 as well, right? So let's do some workout. You can hear the sound. My Millwright has pretty much been seasoned already, so it can grind very effectively. The feel is actually very nice, right? I like the metal body, right? Right, it's almost done. A few more beans left. Yep, you can hear that there's no more sound, which means it's done. Right, usually I'll open the top chamber, right, unlock the lower chamber slightly and do a gentle tap on top, right. And this is the moment that we are all waiting for, right? It's actually the smell of the coffee. When I grind it, I can actually smell all the good fragrance, right? So I think that's part of the reason why we are enjoying coffee so much. It's actually the ability to grind your own coffee. And even better if you can roast your own coffee, that's another bonus, right? So right now, let me check. Okay, let me bring you closer to see. Right, there's some bubbles forming, right? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put it vertical, right? And I'm just going to push it down. Right, and I'm just going to wait for all the water to rise up to the top chamber, right? And the reason why the water is doing that, of course, is simple physics. It's actually a thermal expansion, right? Water is being heated up, expand in volume, and it's being pushed from the bottom chamber to the top chamber, right? Some people uses the infrared lamp at the bottom. I think that will be faster, right? But personally, I prefer the alcohol lamp, right? Just that you have to be careful with the alcohol because it's a flammable liquid. So when you handle this, you must be very careful. Another way to speed this up is actually to use boiling hot water and not use the water from the thermal flask, right? And it will take a slightly longer time for the water to boil. Right, as you can see, the top is already getting wet. The cloth filter is actually getting wet. That shows that the water is actually rising up. And as you can see from the background, okay, I'm a big fan of Dragon Ball, right? And these are some of the anime statues which I've collected. And this thing is big, right? You can see from there. And I usually use the Dragon Ball GT or the Dragon Ball theme song as my background music when I'm doing a work in progress, right? So you can see it's actually a fogging here, so you can see the water is actually rising up. Usually it will be faster, right? But because today I'm using the water from the vacuum flask, so it takes a slightly longer time for the water to reach the temperature, right? Right, the water is slowly going up. I think I probably need to top up the alcohol. Just give me a second. Right, I've just refilled the alcohol lamp. Right, just now it was slow because it's running out of alcohol. Right, so now it should be much faster. Right, you can see that the water is already rising up, and the speed was actually faster than just now, right? if you are not you don't have the patience, this type of brewing style is probably not suitable for you unless you get a infrared lamp, and the heating process will be done in a much faster pace. But somehow I just like my alcohol lamp, right? And you can see that the water is really rising up. We'll just wait for the lower chamber, right, for the water to get pushed up. By the way, there will be some water remaining at the bottom of the chamber, right? The water will not be 100% going up, right? Otherwise the bottom will be running dry, and that's not possible, right? So there's always some water, maybe about 5 to 10% of water that's remaining at the bottom, right? So now you can see that the water is actually rises up, and this is the time whereby, we'll get our coffee ground, right, and we'll put inside. Right, so when you need to start to stir it, right, just gently stir it so that the coffee ground is mixed with water. Right, and then let's just wait for about 60 seconds for the magic to happen, and then you'll get a very good cup of coffee. Right, so you can see there's about 10% of water that's actually at the bottom. So during this time, the coffee is being steeped in the water, right? And this is very different from the V60, because V60 has a lesser steeping time, right? For the siphon coffee, you have a longer steeping time. And later on, once I remove the heat source, there will be drawdown. Right, and you can actually control the intensity of the coffee, right, by allowing the coffee to steep in the water for a longer period of time, and you get a slightly stronger cup of coffee, right? Usually I prefer lighter coffee from my siphon, so usually I will let it steep for about a minute, right? By the way, you can see that the flame is now very high, right? If you want to lower down the flame, you can actually put it to the side, and then it will reduce the heat, right? But right now I want the coffee to come down, right? So let's close the alcohol lamp, and then you'll see that the coffee will start to come down. Right, you can see the coffee is already coming down. And one thing you have to make sure before you use the siphon coffee is, before you start to place your heat source at the bottom, make sure that the bottom part of the chamber is dry on the outside, right? Otherwise there may be uneven expansion on the lower glass, which will lead to cracking, right? So always make sure that your lower chamber is dry before you apply any heat below. Right, so you can see the coffee is coming down, right? I always enjoy this process, right? I'll gently swirl it. Right, you will know that it's ready when there's bubbling at the bottom. And once the bubbles stop, right, you know that your coffee is ready. Right, so show you the coffee ground. The smell is actually very good, right? I can smell tropical fruits, which means that this is going to be a slightly acidic cup, but I don't expect a great acidity from this because I did a sort of city roast, which is slightly towards the medium side, right? So I can smell the rich intensity, right? I think the body, the texture will be good, right? With this siphon coffee style, you will have a lot of clarity, and furthermore, because I'm using the cloth filter, right, you will filter out the oil and everything else, right? So the coffee will be very very clean, right? The taste will be very very clean, right? So let's don't talk so much, and we enjoy the cup of coffee. Normally, your siphon coffee will come with a cover like this, right? This is actually for you to place your top chamber after you're done brewing, right? You can actually rest it on top. Don't worry about it toppling, it won't unless you bang against it, right? So now the coffee is ready to be served. Right, and usually I'll have a bit of remaining, and this will be my second helping, right? Try the coffee, right? Cheers. It's very very hot for the siphon coffee, so be careful, don't burn yourself. Wow, the smell is really very good. The acidity is very well balanced, right? It's not overly acidic, and the body is very good. It has very very good clarity. But it's very hot. There's definitely sweetness, right? And the sweetness we are talking about is not the sugary kind of sweetness, right? It's the berry, the berry juice and kind of sweetness. And the sweetness is on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say that the sweetness level is about 7, right? The acidity level is about 3. So I would say that this is a very well balanced cup, right? So this is Seah once again, right? This is sometimes I make coffee this way because I find that it slow my pace down, right? I can actually sit down and join the process of making this style of coffee and see that the water is flowing up and coming down eventually, and it's just like life, there's always up and down. So let's how do I say this, during this pandemic, right? Let's hope for the best and do our best to survive and do better eventually, right? So this is Seah once again, right? Remember to like my videos, subscribe to my channels, and thank you for watching, and see you very soon.